Welcome back to the $1 million Tipping Point podcast. I am your host, Kiri Mohan. And as a reminder, we're brought to you by the Tipping Jar of Wisdom, where as a subscriber, you get access to exclusive content every Thursday straight to your inbox with actionable tasks from guests that will help you grow your business. So head over, connect with me on Instagram at virtually Kiri or LinkedIn, Kiri Mohan, and sign up through my bio. Also, if you're looking to start or grow your business and become a contractor or freelancer, be sure to sign up for my monthly biz growth workshops, free, also found in my Instagram bio. So hello, today we have Ryann Dowdy. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thanks. How are you?
Ryann Dowdy is a CEO and founder of Be in the Room. She's built multiple seven-figure businesses and has helped hundreds of women do the same. Women have been drawn to her programs not only for her incredible expertise, but also for the community and connection opportunities they find themselves missing in their everyday lives. Today, her focus is on conscious leadership and helping women through their growth and development journeys. Ryann's mission is to create a space for women to come together and experience a sense of empowerment and belonging they've never experienced before. So welcome. I'm excited to have you on the show. Like I said off air, I get super pumped when I have someone whose mission is also to help women in business. And you're also trying to help women grow to seven-figure businesses, which is fabulous for this podcast.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to be here, Kiri. Thanks for the opportunity.
So how do you differentiate yourself with your business from other women's groups out there? Because there's quite a few.
Sure. It's really interesting that you asked that question because I don't even know what all exists. Like, that's not really the way my brain works. I have a tendency to build things that either I could not find when I needed it, or the other women in my ecosystem have not. So when we think about how are we different than other women's organizations, the way I answer that question, despite not knowing what everybody else looks like, is we really marry the building the network piece of business with our personal and professional development, right? So for me, I found a lot of organizations where I could network, and I found a lot of mastermind and coaching programs, but we really marry those two things in a really intentional way.
Yeah. And I think also, or at least it's kind of like what you said, when I've seen other women's groups, it's either focusing all on community, where you get advice from other people, you meet other women, like the networking aspect of it. Mm-hmm. But then the coaching might be separate or the mastermind might be separate. How does that work with you? Because I saw like your three tiers that you had, and like there's that mastermind. Yeah. So the women who sign up for that, do they get to be part of the community and the networking aspect, and then they get to also be part of the mastermind? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So we have our membership level and our mastermind level. So our membership level is going to be way more that community. We do education in there as well. So we do like master classes and training, but that tends to be a little bit more networking driven. And then our mastermind, they get all of those networking opportunities, but then we do a lot more peer-to-peer collaboration, peer education, that strategic advisory board style vibe of, getting feedback from the collective and things in that way.
So your audience, most of them have their own businesses. Is that correct already?
We serve both entrepreneurs and corporate women. And that's another thing that kind of differentiates us as well, is we're not all one. And I'll give you the reason why. So when we hit seven figures in 2021, between both of my businesses, the time I had two, I think we did 1.2 million in top line revenue. So we got into some of those rooms and those masterminds and those spaces that are for seven-figure business owners. And I expected to walk in and be really impressed, and I wasn't. And it's not to sound like a jerk or not to be arrogant or any of those other things, but I realized that my 15-year corporate career selling marketing and advertising to business owners gave me a boatload of information and context and tools that I needed to be a really successful entrepreneur. And it got me thinking, how many other smart women are we leaving out of important conversations by really just focusing on the business owner? Because there's women in corporate that still want to feel supported and seen, heard, and understood, and build their networks for their careers and their businesses, that have a robust amount of skills that we would find hugely valuable as entrepreneurs. And then us as entrepreneurs provide value to our corporate friends in that we tend to move fast and be innovative and be creative. And so I just realized that just because you choose a full-time job as the way to fulfill your best version of success doesn't mean that there's not value in all of us learning from and connecting with one another.
So I'm looking at your pricing. I think yours is definitely aimed at very people who have built their foundations either in their career or in their business, and they are looking to maybe take it to the next level or have like the network of women there available to get advice and understanding from them what they did, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So we say that we are not a community for people that are brand new to their business or their career. But at the same time, I came with a 15-year career when I was a brand new business owner, right? So we don't discount people based on that. We do have an application process for our mastermind level just to make sure energetically it vibes. But yeah, we definitely we cater to that woman who is relatively established in her skill set, in who she is, but might be, reinventing herself in a new career, or reinventing herself or leaving a career and starting a business, or in her career has just stepped into leadership and is feeling a little like a fish out of water, in those ways. So it is that more established person, but that's not a hard and fast rule.
How many people do you have right now in Be in the Room?
We have 55 members, with the lion's share at our mastermind level. So in 2022, we only sold the mastermind level. We just launched the membership level, in December. So we have, I don't know, probably about 8 to 10 people in that. And we just launched a new program where we are planting local communities through our community director program. So partnering with women in local markets who want to build a network where they live, but not have to do it all by themselves. So we're growing in that way right now.
I was actually going to ask if you had in-person like summits or meetings or anything like that.
So yeah, we do an annual event. So we have our 2-day event coming up. It's April 13th and 14th in Scottsdale, which is like big, bring the speakers.
I love Scottsdale.
Are you in Scottsdale?
No, I'm not, but I love Scottsdale. I've been there quite a few times. One of my favorite places.
Scottsdale is, Arizona in general has just really stolen my heart over the past 18 months, in some just reinvention and things that I've gone through. So it felt very appropriate to host an event there, for me. But then, yeah, we will now be hosting monthly kind of meetups in local markets. I think we have 8 community directors, confirmed. And then I'm running one here in Kansas City. So we're getting there to more boots on the ground, more grassroots connection in local markets is very much our vision for growth in 2023.
I like it. I like it. Now, so that means most of it's virtual right now.
Yep. We were entirely virtual all through 22.
Right. I mean, it was kind of hard to go in person anyway.
Well, and at the time, it's so funny how we grow and change, because at the time I thought about it, I was like, I should just start this community here in Kansas City, but I had spent, however many years, 2019 and the previous 3 years building a network online. I'm like, I have this giant global network of women, and those were the women who were kind of informing my decisions for the need for the space. And so for me, it felt natural to just do it virtually. But then as more and more people are coming forward and saying, I never really desired to grow a business on the internet, it was just my only option. Now I would really like to, serve clients in my local market, but I can't figure out where to go to do that. That doesn't feel super stuffy, super salesy, or it's really broy in some capacity. So that's what really informed the desire to plant the in-person communities.
I like your core values, so I'm going to read these out loud. There's 1, unapologetic, 2, community, 3, both and, so you don't have to have either or. I love that. And 4, reinvention. Yeah. Are the women in your community who sign up for Be in the Room, are they going through that process of the core values, or do you find that there's just like, a woman who gravitates more towards community, one who gravitates more towards reinvention, one who's, trying to be stronger and not apologize as much, or something like that?
I think it's probably the season of life in which most women find us, and we do not market to a specific age group or anything like that. That's not how we positioned us in any way, Carrie, but it's wound up that we're serving women in that kind of season of life where they feel like they want more, and they're experiencing some drama over that desire, right? Either they, who am I to want more? I have a really great life. Why can't you just be happy with what you have? Or, just some of that, right? Those stories that we tell ourselves. And so a lot of our women are going through that transformation of really owning the unapologetic desire to do something different. If that's what, they desire to do. So that's kind of where those came from, or just really embracing that part of us. So we say like our mission is a movement of women of action who rebel against the status quo and build a life of success on their own terms. And to me, that's the values kind of embody that, right? This idea of being unapologetically yourself, not having to explain to, your sister why you are taking a different job, or, leaving a steady paycheck to build a business, right? Or whatever it is. And being able to really understand the idea of both and, you can be really amazing in your business and make a boatload of money and serve a lot of people and still be present with your family if that's what you desire. So I feel like that's kind of where that came from, is really owning all of you while you grow.
And I loved that when I was reading through like the examples of the both and, people think like, oh, you either have a great career as a woman or you give up time or like with your family. And it doesn't have to be like that. It can be both. You can have everything, which I like. You mentioned briefly marketing and how you market yourself. So where do you find and get the women to come join your community? How do you market to them? What are some of the tips that you have?
Yeah. So our communities have been built primarily on Facebook, and we've tapped back into LinkedIn here lately. It's really how I've grown my business entirely on Facebook, and primarily organically.
I read that you had like 7,000 people in one of your Facebook groups. I don't know where I read that, but at one point you had 7,000 people.
Yeah. When I was in the sales coaching business, we built a community of women in business. It was called Sales Skills for Women in Business. We had about 7,000 members at one point in time, and we dumped maybe 15 grand in ads over a couple of years into that. Like it was pretty minimal compared to that. But for me, it was all about like the best tip I can give someone. It's all about connection and relationships, which is no wonder that I run a women's organization, right? That's focused on that. But I find that the way that I have grown all of my businesses to date, even some of the one-on-one consulting I do, has all been through relationships, and really focusing on connection and focusing on service has really been my jam, and not getting super caught up in what is trendy, but rather focusing on like human psychology, not like marketing psychology.
And you have like the creds to back it up with your past experience. I saw that everything, like your past experience, was really sales and marketing before you started going out on your own. What made you want to jump to go out on your own from your sales and marketing career?
Yeah. So it was one of those, it was after my oldest was born. So I have a 6-year-old and a 3.5-year-old. And I went back to work and a full-time director of sales. So I was consulting for this company before I had my son. I was offered a full-time position running my own sales team, which to me was like the ultimate dream job, because before I'd always done like channel sales and things like that, where I was training sales teams, but they weren't mine. I didn't get to hire them, train them, love them, coach them. Like they weren't mine to do that. And it was like my first opportunity to grow my own team and really like build the foundation inside of an organization. And I was really pumped about it. But I was back to work for like 4 months, and just one of those, like, what am I doing with my life? Like, this can't be it, right? Like, this cannot be all that God put me on this planet to do, is this job. And it wasn't a desire to stay home. I love my children more than anything on the planet. I'm not designed to be a stay-at-home mom. That's just not my jam. And so it really was just that, again, that fire for something more. And then of course, the guilt and shame spiral of what the hell is wrong with you? You have your dream job. Why can you not just be happy where you are? But that's really what it was. It was that just unsettling in my belly of like, this, I don't think this is it. And I honestly, Carrie, didn't go looking for entrepreneurship. I thought I just needed to make an industry change. I'd been in sales and marketing, selling marketing and advertising in some capacity for 15 years. And I was like, maybe I just need to like go sell pharmaceuticals or something. I don't know. Maybe it's just an industry change. And in that, through networking, I learned about the like really online space of, what Russell Brunson refers to as the expert market, right? So you're consulting, coaching, courses. Like I didn't know any of those things existed. I had a very traditional corporate career. To me, being a business owner meant a brick and mortar business, right? So this idea of like people will pay you for the things that you know, and you can serve them from like the comfort of your own home was brand new to me. And that's where I tripped, fell, and stumbled. And I side hustled for a little while. I thought it would take a really long time to get out. It really didn't. Took me about 1.5 years to get out of my corporate job, but I could have been out like 3 or 4 months faster, but I was pregnant with my second. So I was like, well, we're just going to stay here and let my current company pay for my maternity leave and my benefits. But that was really my runway.
Wow. I also have a 6-year-old. So
fun.
2016.
Davis is 2017,
Okay.
February 14th, 2017.
So just turned
Mhm.
6. All right. Very cool. So what do you think are the steps you use to grow your business to 1 million? Oh, wait, before we ask that, are you
Yep.
still running 2 businesses, or are you all in Be in the Room right now?
Um, the short answer is yes, but the second business is still in its infancy stage. So Be in the Room is 80% of my focus.
Oh,
And
okay.
my team and I are launching a consulting agency where we will do a hybrid of like consulting and done for you work on the sales and marketing side, but that is still very much in its infancy right now, with a couple of beta clients. So 80% of my focus is on Be in the Room. That
Okay.
is my time.
Great. So then we'll focus on that.
Yeah.
So what were the steps you used to grow your business to 1 million?
Talk to people. People get really just frustrated when they're like, what did you do? And I was like, I talked to everyone. Like I literally talked to everyone. I, coffeed my face off. I built relationships. I served the heck out of people, in my first business. We live launched was our strategy. So we did, the 9-day live launch where we were teaching and providing massive value. And then there was a pitch at the end. When I transitioned into my second business, that was with a business partner, that was built very much through relationships. It was a $20,000 program sold specifically to 7-figure business owners. So it was much more relationship focused than, your traditional launch, if you will. And so that's really been it. It's just taking the time to build the relationships, take the connect calls, serve the people, hear what they want, hear what they need, and then give it to them, right? Like Be in the Room came out of a need that I was seeing with women where they were like, okay, I'm done with the high ticket coaching space. But what things that space did very well was create really cool communities of people. How do I marry those two things, right? It always came out of need and relationships. So that has been like my hyper focus, is get to know the people, serve the people, solve a problem, for a specific person, and then serve the heck out of them.
Mm. Did you do a lot of like beta testing of it when you were talking to people, or was it really just like, hey, what do you want? What are you looking for? Let me see if I can build it.
More of that. Yeah. Like what do you feel is missing, right? Like what are you in right now? What are you paying for, right? Coaching program, mastermind way, and what is missing? What do you love about it? What do you hate about it? And the number one thing I heard is like, well, I joined this networking organization and that networking organization and that networking organization, and they were all super salesy and super pitchy. And it felt like there were that was the number one thing that we heard. And then the number two thing that we heard was most of the communities were very simple, or very singularly focused. I'm sorry. Meaning if you were a marketing agency, right, you were in a mastermind with a bunch of other agency owners, which was cool from a learning perspective, but not awesome from learning different perspectives.
Yeah.
Way, right? So people were like, okay, I'm done just like hanging out in a room with all the other people trying to do the same thing I'm trying to do. Like I want to get out of that room and get ideas and new perspectives and fresh ideas. So those were the two things I heard the most, is I want to grow a network of people, but everything available to me sucks. And I want to be in community with other people, but I don't want them all to look exactly like me and what they're trying to accomplish.
I think that second one is probably more my line of thought. I was actually on Reddit the other day, and I think I was in the entrepreneur thing, and someone said like, why should I bother asking my friends for opinions on my business or something like that? And I was like, why wouldn't you? They have a totally different point of view. They could pull in something that you have no idea, you would have never thought of, because their point of view is just so different, right? And I think sometimes we can get so used to being like, oh, I'm just going to go into this one, like my career path, that's going to be my group. I'm actually part of an association that is for, what I like about it is for like any female business owner. But then there's like separate tracks almost that you join, like, and you can join separate groups, like service-based, just starting your business, growing your business,
cool,
marketers, whatever, So I think that's an important need for sure. How long did it take you to reach the 7-figure mark from when you started your business?
So $1 million total, $1 million in a year.
Total.
So I would say, January 2018 is when like I started. I made like $4,000 that year. So then I would say it would have been by the first quarter of 21. So 18, 19, 20. So about 3 years.
Okay. I know, talk to me a little bit with like, at least with communities. I don't run one, so I'm not entirely Sure. What goes into expenses versus, your gross profit?
Sure. Well, I mean, the virtual side of it is extremely low cost, right? I have two full-time team members. So I have a full-time marketing manager and a full-time program director. So my marketing manager, I always say, anything pretty you've ever seen that we've done on the internet, Jessica has touched. If it's well organized and put in a bulleted list or a spreadsheet, Valerie has touched it. So I have two full-time team members, and then otherwise it's primarily marketing and technology is really what we spend money on.
Okay. What's the best investment that you've made?
My business?
Yeah. With that, like, cause you said marketing, technology, your two team members, what do you think has been the best investment?
Well, the best investment I've ever made for me has always been in coaching, right? Investing and bettering myself. So that's obviously, I invest in now I no longer invest in business coaching. I invest in personal coaching. That was a choice I made probably about 1.5 years ago when I realized, that I was building things based on other people's vision and not my own. Coaching, investing in myself, investing in my own brain and understanding myself has always been my best investment over and over and over again. Aside from that, and like I said, it's the personal coaching has been more valuable to me than business coaching. Cause like I said, business coaching has worked beautifully for me. But what I wound up doing when I was live launching back in the day, like I built a program that looked exactly like my coaches. It was big, it was clunky, it was expensive to run. It had a lot of people, it had a lot of parts. It was a pain in the butt. It ate up so much of my time and I really hated it. So, I hate to say that because I love the women we served. And I think we were so, we did a really good job serving our clients. Like we genuinely cared. We still care. I mean, I would say 60% of the Be in the Room membership came from that coaching program. But I built a business that did not serve me and serve my goals and serve my values. I built a business that looked like my coach's business because that's what the blueprint was. And there's a puppy underneath my desk in case you're wondering.
I was wondering why the computer all of a sudden moved.
Where did you go? I've got the camera on a tripod and he's just hanging out under there. So that, investing in myself had been hugely important, but then after that, team has been my best investment. Like investing in team, investing in getting the support that I need so I get to stay in the lane that I belong in, hands down. And whether that is a full-time employee or a VA, I don't care, but like spending time doing things that you're not good at, that you don't like, that are energy draining, they're not helping you by saving a couple hundred or a couple $1,000s a month. They're just not.
So what I pulled from that, which is really interesting, is like you said, you had built this community based on what your coach's recommendations were, and it was just very vastly different from what was serving you. How did you make the change and the shift and the pivot? Did you even tell the community members? I mean, it sounds like you did because you said a lot of percentage came to this new one. Yep. So were you just like, hey guys, I'm changing. Sorry about that. Like what was that process even like to pivot and change?
Yeah. So there were several iterations, right? So the first iteration was my coaching program. So that was my coaching community. That's the one that I was just speaking about that looked a lot like my coach's business and her program. So that was all of 2019, 2020, and most of 2021 as I served that ecosystem. I started a second business with a partner in 21, who was my then business coach. And I'm sorry, that was in 2020, we launched it. 21 was the year that I ran it. So ultimately, when that business took off like crazy fast, I made the decision to stop enrolling people in my programs in my business and became the full-time CEO of that business. So then we stopped enrolling people in my coaching program and we just did service delivery for the women who were still enrolled in the program. So that was kind of that iteration. And then the Be in the Room community launch was in January of 2022. So these are women who had been following me online in some way, shape, or form on my email list, in my Facebook group for years. Like they had watched me go from what was the Uncensored Sales Accelerator to, so we called it the Uncensored brand, to the Social Sellers Academy brand, to the Be in the Room brand, since 2019. So many of them have come through. When we ultimately decided to shut down the Uncensored Consulting or the Uncensored Sales brand, that was terrible. I mean, like I cried so hard. I was so heartbroken to do it. And again, it was completely, intuitively led. And it needed to happen. But I mean, I was heartbroken to step away from that community. But for me, the reason I said yes to being the full-time CEO of Social Sellers Academy for me was impact. Like my big picture vision is, speaking and books and making a huge, huge difference for women in business. And if I painted myself into the corner as the woman who tells people they should quit their jobs and become entrepreneurs, right? No sales organization is bringing me in to speak to their sales team about self-leadership if I'm the one teaching people to quit their jobs, right? Or, we are surrounded by entrepreneurs on the internet, so we think they're everywhere, but we're actually a very small, percentage of the population. So when I got the opportunity to lean into leading the sales training organization where we were working with sales teams in all different industry, for me, it was impact, so the number of people that I could actually serve. So that was kind of the reason for that shift. And I mean, it was terrible telling them. Like I said, I literally cried. I had a lot of anxiety over it, but I was like, for what I feel I was put on this planet to do, this is the next best step for me.
I think it's important for women to hear that. I mean, the fact that you cried, that it was hard, because
it was awful. Yeah.
I think a lot of women maybe put off these hard decisions for a long time because they just don't want to go through that process. And like you see and you hear other people all the time, like, oh, I pivoted my business, I changed this. It's like, what was that hard? What was it like? So I appreciate you being honest and saying, this was intuitive led. Like I knew it was the right thing, but it was really, really hard.
Well, it's one of the reasons why reinvention is one of our core values within Be in the Room, because as women, we have so much fear, at least in my observation, of making a change. One, because society tells us we should pick a career when we're 18 and we should do it until we die, which is stupid. And then two, it's the idea of I'm letting people down, right? Like if I stop teaching new entrepreneurs how to sell, I'm letting them down, and that absolutely went through my mind and my heart in all of those ways. But I had to think about, like, am I really going to prioritize somebody else's needs, wants, desires over my own? Like, does that even make sense? And I mean, a lot of women, we do it all the time. We say, yes, of course, I'm going to prioritize the same thing with my business partnership. Like my business partner was my business coach, and I discovered that she was not who she said she was on the internet. And then I had to go tell her that I didn't want to be her business partner anymore. And I probably stayed in that partnership for 6 months longer than I should have, because I was terrified of telling this woman that I didn't want to do this anymore. And I was going to let her down, and she trusted me, and she a much larger audience than me, all these things. I mean, that is why reinvention is one of our core values, because it is okay to continue to reinvent yourself as many times as you need to until you are living your own best version of your own life and success. But we're taught not to do that. I guess just stay here in this mediocre job or in this mediocre business or serving these clients I don't even friggin' like, because I'm going to piss people off that I don't even friggin' know and like if I make a change.
You know what? You make that change, at least when I tell women, is like, when you make that change, people don't really care. I mean, they care, but like your close family cares. Sure. Your close friend maybe care a little.
Right.
That's the thing we build up in our heads. Who actually cares what we're doing? And I fall into this trap sometimes too, all the time. I'm like, ooh, this is a weird post. Do I post this? I don't know. What are people going to think of me? Who really cares?
No, we don't care.
What advice do you have for them, for women who, like you talk about the business coach, right? And they're there to coach you in your business, try to help make your business more profitable, aligned with what you want. What advice do you have for women who might be on that same path as you, currently getting business coaching, and not to fall into that trap that you did, which is like building something that is not authentic to them?
I think it starts with defining your values early and often, right? So again, for me at the time, I was trying to get out of my full-time job. That's all that I wanted to do. And so I made the mistake of looking at the next 6 months to 12 months instead of looking at the next 3 to 5 years. So I guess if I had to boil it down, it's like, pull your head up and look at the big picture, because 5 years from now, is this what you want to be doing? The answer was no, right? Like, gosh, no, I did not want to be managing 4 billion coaches and all the stuff we were doing. Like, no, I didn't want that at all. But at the time I was so focused on get out of the job, make the money, get out of the job, make the money. And then, once we did that, it was like, okay, make the money, make more money, make more money. And then, you jump from an $8,000 month to a $10,000 month to a $30,000 month to a $70,000 month over the course of 8 months. You're just like, holy cannoli, what just happened? And then what I personally did was I just kept chasing more. Like I was chasing the high at that point in the game, right? Like it was just the dopamine hit of more. And for me, that's what I was chasing. That's what I was doing. And I wasn't thinking about where do you want to be in 3 years or 5 years. All I was thinking about is, okay, well, if we can make 70 grand in a month, we could probably make 100, right? And while that was fun at the time, it left me empty and unfulfilled and working around the clock for something I wasn't really excited about anymore.
And then once you hit that goal, it's like just the next goal and then the next goal and the next goal. And when does it end? So you talked a little bit about your best investment being some of your team, well, your personal coaching too, but your team. And you said you have 2 people right now. When did you know, or no, let's talk about some hiring advice that you have for people. Like, why would some people hire contractors versus employees? You said they're employees that you have. What are the pros and cons in that? And what are some pitfalls to watch out for as people hire and grow their team extensively?
Sure. So for me, employees over contractors, my business coach at the time, also my former business partner, was team employee all day long. And so that was just how I grew up, was this idea of like, you would hire employees, like grew up in business. I'd always worked in corporate America where it was employees, right? Like that's what it was employees. The reason I've chosen employees, one is you have, astronomically more control over how and when they work when they are employees. And then you also have somewhat of a fixed cost in that, meaning like Jessica, my marketing manager, right? If every time I was like, so I want to try this thing out, can we build a funnel for this? Like I had to go pay a funnel builder to do that. Like half the ideas would never come to life because I'd be like, am I really going to pay spend the 6-8 grand to experiment? Probably not. Right. But when somebody full-time on staff, I already pay her salary, I just have to figure out what's being rearranged for her to make time for this experiment that I want. And the same thing with my program director, Valerie, where I'm like, hey, can you help me, outline out what, this, and this, if we were to do these things, what would we need? What are our processes? And really being able to like experiment in a cool way that is you can't do with contractors, or would cost you astronomically more with contractors. But when I first started, my first VA, I was still working full time. I paid her like $200 a month to schedule my social media. Working full time. I knew that it needed to be done. So I wrote it and then she would schedule it for me. And then it was just like, what are the things that I don't have time to do because I'm, it was a side hustle at the time. And then eventually became the things, what do I not like doing? So I started with contractors and eventually grew into employees at that time. So that was kind of my journey of contractor versus employee. In my mind, contractors tend to be more project-based. And if something more ongoing, my goal is almost always to eventually turn it into an employee, because again, in my personal experience, you get a little bit more bang for your buck. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on contractor versus employee. And then as far as like mistakes or things that I've been, hiring, is really being mindful of like hiring for, I don't want to say the things you don't like or the things you're not good at, but it's kind of the thing that's coming to mind for me right now, right? Was like, find the people who are completely different than you. So I will give you for instance, Valerie is my program director. She's smart. She's good at what she does, all the different things. Personality wise, we couldn't be farther apart. Right. We get along beautifully. I'm not criticizing her in any way, shape or form, but what I mean to say is like, she wasn't somebody that I got on an interview with and like, we hit it off and it was so fun and it totally jived. And oh my gosh, this is the perfect person for the job, which is what we think is supposed to happen. Or maybe we're told that's what happens. But sometimes I'm like, no, I need somebody who's the polar opposite of me. Like I need somebody who's not easily excitable and finds bright, shiny objects and is so far down the path, like those types of things. So I think it's like really understanding what you're hiring for and not just hiring for people you like or people you get along with, because while that makes for a lot of fun, sometimes it means we don't get everything done. So just really focusing on what am I hiring for and understanding that person might not be the person that you got along with best in an interview, but might still be the best person for you.
I like that. Now, have you had any of the women in your group, has anyone ever been unhappy with the group or asked for a refund or generally an unhappy customer? And if so, how did you deal with that?
Yeah. Over the years, we've been asked for refunds and cancellations, plenty of times. The first thing I always do if somebody is unhappy, is I thank them for bringing me the feedback, right? I'm always like, thank you so much, Carrie, for letting me know. Can I ask you a couple of questions? And this is something, again, I learned in teaching sales, was asking for permission to ask questions, and can you give me some feedback about what's going on here? Like, for instance, we just had a woman want to cancel her membership, and she joined like 3 weeks prior. So I'm like, and she's not shown up for anything. So I was like, what the heck? Well, come to find out, when she got in, and like the call times were the same time as like coaching calls with her coach that she was working with. Oh. Right. And in all fairness, I don't have those calls published on our website. She didn't know that when she joined. And so it felt good to me to be able to have a conversation with her, and then, choose a course of action moving forward, despite it being, a 12-month agreement, how we could get her out of that, because I didn't want it. I don't believe in like holding people hostage, in their agreements. So, but if I would have just taken it as like, I want to cancel, I could have told myself all the stories about like, it was terrible and it was bad and everybody hates it, and all the things. And really, she was like, unfortunately, just the, just the timing didn't work for her. So really being curious about what's going on is really, really, really important. We also keep like really fantastic documentation of like who attends what and where and why, because heaven forbid, you ever wind up in any sort of litigation, which you don't want. It's going to help you when somebody asks for a refund to be able to say like, well, I'm willing to offer this amount of a refund because these were the resources used. So we have been able to have that conversation when somebody's like, well, I'm just not using the things. And it's like, well, we can see on the back end that you've watched 87% of the videos, you're just unable to attend the live coaching calls. Like, talk to me about what's going on here. And like I said, most of the time, there have been maybe twice in the past handful of years where people just totally ghosted me, were total jerks, didn't care. Any other time, I've been able to come to some sort of agreement with that person as to how our contract would end, who would owe who what. I'm not sure if I've been asked for a refund once. When we closed down Social Sellers Academy, I was asked for a refund, and I said no, and they disputed the charge with Stripe, and Stripe sided with them despite their contract being over about 60 days before we closed the business. But you win some, you lose some. But that was the only time anybody ever asked for a refund. In my experience, actually, the credit card companies generally do side with the person complaining. Just totally. They're just like, oh, well, fine, we got plenty of money. Sure, we're just going to give you the money. Like, get out of here. Yeah, I won one dispute. Because again, I had the documentation of the use of materials where I was like, this is all the things that this person did. And just like having that in a spreadsheet and sending it over. We won one dispute one time with somebody who she wanted to cancel. She was the 30-day window. So it was just one payment, not everything she wanted disputed. And so we were able to win that. And then, like I said, the one time the woman who did not use the resources, but her contract was expired. Like, before we closed the business, her contract was over. It was a 6-month contract that ended, like, I don't know, maybe in August. And, we closed the business in December. So I wasn't even worried about that. I was shocked that, Stripe gave her money back. And it didn't, and we're talking like 18 grand. It wasn't $12. It was like $18,000. Wow. That awarded her back. They gave her all that back. Oh. And again, she did not use the materials, but her contract was over, when your contract is over with the gym, if you didn't go to the gym, you don't get your money back. And so I really don't fully understand what happened. I even consulted my attorney, because it was a large enough amount of money that I was like, help me out here. So I converted my accountant and my attorney, and they helped me put together the dispute, and we still lost. Interesting. So you keep talking about like the data in the background and all the stuff that you're able to see. What platform do you use for your community? So we currently use Funnel Gorgeous as our membership site. Okay. So we're able to log in and see who else is logged in, what materials they've looked at. In my previous program, we used Teachable to do the same. Teachable. Yes, I've heard Teachable. Super simple. What are your plans for the next 5-10 years of your business, since you like to think long-term? Yeah, 10 years, I have no idea. 5 years, too much. My children will be like, oh, Davis will be 16. He'll be driving a car in 10 years. I can't go there. But in the next 5 years, our goal is to plant I would say about 100 communities a year across the world. So that's really kind of vision of each year we prop up 100 community directors to open communities in their markets. That's really the big picture plan of like the growth of Be in the Room, is really growing through those local communities. And then for me, it's really getting myself out of the day-to-day operations so I can spend my time going and being at those events. Like I love to travel. My superpower is finding ways to get my company to pay for me to travel. And so, I want to take the kids and be like, cool, we're going to go to an event in, Minneapolis and Milwaukee and Chicago over the next, 10 days and just go do that, right? Go to a Be in the Room event here and here and here and go help those community directors facilitate their communities and then get into, books and speaking in that capacity. But that's really our plan, is to help prop up those local communities and bring women together.
What are some of the biggest hurdles you faced growing your business to 7 figures and beyond?
You mean besides myself?
Yes, besides yourself. Oh, no, really. If you're the bottleneck, if you think like, hey, I'm the bottleneck, I'm the one that's been holding us back, that's interesting too.
So it's actually more, again, the mental piece, right? It's the who am I and can I do this type of story, right? That has been has probably been my biggest barrier everywhere, right? Is belief in myself, belief in my ideas, has probably been the biggest thing that I've had to overcome time and time and time again. Because again, with Be in the Room, like we are not, it actually kind of hurts my heart a little bit. There are women's communities and women organizations that are dirt cheap, right? Like one woman told me she's part of a community with $79 for the year. And I'm like, that's just insulting. Like, stop it. But so we're, our pricing is $111 a month or $444 a month, right? So it's like right around $13,000 or $1,300 a year, or just over $5,000 for the year. And, we're definitely in the higher end as far as pricing goes. And so, I have a lot of drama around that. Like, would I make a bigger impact if I just dropped my price, right? Like the number of times I've had that fight in my head is astronomical, right? Like we're hosting a 2-day event in Scottsdale in April, and it's, selling event tickets is pretty brutal. But again, it's all my story, right? It's all me, what I believe, what I think people will buy, what they think they'll spend money on. Like it's always comes back to me and my belief of how valuable what we do is. So I do that work every single day. But I always think that that's the biggest bottleneck that I have, is getting like, my brain on board with, all of the wild ideas that I have.
What would you advise women who also struggle with that? I struggle with it too. Like, who am I to do X?
Yeah. The way that I really deal with that is I truly believe that whether you believe in God, the universe, whatever, it's more spiritual than religious, what I'm trying to say right now. But like, I believe that the ideas and things that are on our heart are there for a reason. And I think that if your desire is to grow $1 million business, that is not an accident, because there's plenty of people that woke up this morning that did not want to grow $1 million business, right? There's plenty of people that woke up this morning and did not even want to be business owners, because we think like, of course, everybody wants $1 million business. Why would you not want $1 million business? Well, to some people, the idea of running any kind of business, much less one that makes $1 million, is terrifying. So my thought or my belief is that like, if it's on your heart, if it's on your mind, those nudges, those ideas that you get, like, those are from a source outside of you. So who am I? It's like, I don't know, but I was chosen for this, right? Like for me, Be in the Room was given to me in like a very clear picture of this is what you should do. And so, yeah, I mean, do I tell myself the story every day? Do I think there's something wrong with it? Do I think it's broken? Do I want to burn it down sometimes? Like, yes, of course I do. But it was given to me, right? It was given to me. And I remember that. And that's really how I stay focused on those, like, who the hell are you? Like, I didn't come up with this on my own. It was intuitive. In some ways, it was serendipitous in some way. Like, that's really where most of my stuff comes from.
What advice do you have for other women who are trying to grow their business to that $1 million point?
What advice do I have that we haven't already talked about?
I know, that's what I was thinking too, because I was like, you've given so much. If you could like distill it down into like 1 or 1 to 3 sentences.
Sure. Relationships are everything.
Yeah.
That is really like, focus on the relationships that you have. meaning the support system, at home. Like we didn't even talk about that, right? Like not just in the business, but outside of the business, right? I think that's hugely important, having people who support you, the relationships that are the people that are going to, actually be there for you when you have a crappy day, right? Those relationships that are people that are going to make that referral introduction for you, right? Like those relationships, you and I were connected through another guest on your show, which is a woman I've known forever and ever and ever, right? Like there are very few like cool, amazing things I have in my life that I can't tie back to a relationship in some capacity. So you will get really busy and you will want to put your head down and work, and you will want to bury your head in the sand, and you will want to avoid going to that event and this event and that event because you don't have time to take that much time out away from the business to go do whatever it is you want to do. But I promise you, when you prioritize relationships, everything else becomes easier.
And it circles all the way back to the beginning when you said to us, talk to people.
Amen.
So talk to people, and relationships are everything. It's like so similar, so close, because talking to people is a relationship. So tell us a little bit about where we can find you, your website, any social media handles, anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is beintheroom.org. On social media, I am Ryann Dowdy on Facebook, Ryann Dowdy on LinkedIn, at Be in the Room Official on Instagram. We do have a Facebook group called Be in the Room. And yeah, the website's beintheroom.org.
I just realized that I called you Ryann in the beginning. I just assumed that was how you said your name, but you said it a little differently.
I didn't notice you did it because I've heard because it happens so often.
I am blown away because I thought there was only one pronunciation of your name, and now I feel bad.
Don't feel bad at all because I didn't notice, because it happens okay. A lot of Ryann or Ryann, and I respond to all of it.
All right. Tell us, what's one philosophy, mantra, or quote that you try to run your business by?
Oh, it's not about you.
Ooh, okay.
It's not about you. When somebody says no, it's usually not about you. Whatever you put out into the world is usually not about you. It's about who you desire to serve. Your marketing, it's not about you. It's about your clients, right? Like there's so many things in life when we talk about relationships, right? Like sometimes in your relationships, you can be selfish, but oftentimes it's like, it's not about me. It's about the people that I am meant to serve. And whenever I find myself in like discord or frustration or overwhelm, it's almost always because I'm worried about myself and not the people that I feel that I'm meant to serve.
Of course. I've heard that so many times too. I like that though, but it's not about you, is in a new way that I've heard it phrased. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. As a reminder for our audience, please sign up for the Tipping Jar of Wisdom. You'll get the exclusive content questions where Ryann will give you the actionable advice for your business on how to grow it. So thank you again for sharing your wisdom with us. It's been super duper appreciated.
Awesome. I'm happy to do it. Thanks for the conversation. Great questions.